yesterday the Big Ten announced their all-conference teams, but we do things differently here. We drafted our Big Ten teams this morning with the goal of building a better team than the other guy. It was a simple snake draft, but you can only draft 3 players max from one school. So we got to get to the reveal here, and Jake, we're going to let you go first. We're going to start with your offense, so let us know what you're rocking with.
Okay, let's break it down. Arguably, there was a start with the quarterback position here, and there's 2 quarterbacks. There's Dillon Gabriel, Curtis Rourke. In my opinion, for the large chunk of the season, Curtis Rourke was the best quarterback in the Big Ten. So I start with Curtis Rourke. Then we go into our running backs. I got the best running back in the conference by a landslide in Caleb Johnson. He's a stud. Statistically, and he's put the team on his back effectively without a passing game. Rounded out with maybe, preseason hype, Quinshon Judkins is my second back. And then I liked, there's a gap, okay? I wanted to find the gaps. The gap between Jeremiah Smith and the next wide receiver is significant. So I got Jeremiah Smith at wide receiver, big body, long wide receiver, make plays downfield. And then I got the best route running wide receiver in Ty Felton. So I really love that duo. And to round it all out, Colston Loveland, my goodness, you look at the stats, maybe not as impressive as Tyler Warren, but the context of the fact teams could game plan for him every single week. I love my offense. Most important of all, you talk about a gap. I have Oregon's offensive line, which will be a finalist for the Joe Moore Award. No one else in the conference can say they're very close to that. 2 bookend tackles and a dominant interior.
It's a good offensive line, no doubt. Colston Loveland, really hard to argue against. I think the wide receivers are going to be interesting because you can put some other guys up against the 2 that you have. Very good players there. I got a little problem with the running back room I'll get into here in a sec. For Caleb Johnson, you got some games, 86 yards, 98 yards, 49 yards, 45 yards. You can shut him down now. You can shut him down.
You can shut him down in the context of Iowa's offense. You can't shut him down when you got Jeremiah Smith, Ty Felton, and Colston Loveland.
I think
you can, and with Oregon's offensive line, you cannot shut him down. I'm going to tell
you exactly what's going to shut them down. Let's get to my defenders here. And we're going to start up front, of course, with the big guys. So you got Mason Graham. I don't think there's any argument. He was the first pick in this whole thing. I think he's the best player in the whole conference. Also on the interior, how about Derek Harmon? Not a lot of people are talking about this dude. I think that he is very close to Mason Graham, plays with the same aggression and intensity. Might not be as gifted, but he's a very good player there. And let's get to the edges. So you got Mikael Kamara, who is very productive, did a great job for Indiana, can find some ways to get him involved in the game plan. And Gabe Akis. And one of the things that stands out is not only the sack production TFLs, he is a forced fumble guy. He's going to get the ball out. Same thing with Derek Harmon. Now let's get to the linebackers. Jay Higgins, most productive linebacker in the Big Ten over the span of many years. Aiden Fisher, another guy who I love. He plays really hard. And then Sonny Styles, a guy who I can put out there in space. He's a guy who you can put in the blitz package. You can put him up toward the line of scrimmage. Now I get multiple fronts out of this defense. But it's the secondary that I think can stand up. D'Angelo Pons did a great job. You got Sebastian Castro at the other corner, who's been very good for multiple years. But how about the safeties? Caleb Downs, Coy Parrish, the 2 best safeties in the Big Ten. We're talking ball hawking. We're talking hitting. They do everything. Both of those guys are phenomenal. This defense top to bottom now. I don't know how you're going to be able to move the ball very well.
Well, I'll tell you how, because Kamara put up great numbers, but let's look at the big game. How do you do against Ohio State? 0 sacks. Just a few tackles. Mason Graham, he's a stud. You know I love Mason Graham. How'd he do against Oregon? 0 sacks. Okay. How about Gabe Yakis? All right. How'd he do against Oregon? He's the only one that got a sack. So these D linemen are great, but they're facing an elite offensive line.
I've got the leader in quarterback hits. I've got the top 3 guys in hurries. I've got 3 of the top 4 in total pressures. I've got the 2 best safeties.
And I got the best offensive line.
I've got the forced fumble leader.
The antidote.
I've got the interception leader and 2 of the top 3 in tackles.
I don't think this one's close. I think we put up 35.
Okay. All right.
Break down your offense and let's see if we can get it close.
Let me get to my offense here. All right. So I'm going to start with the best quarterback in the Big Ten, the guy who was first team All Big Ten for very good reason.
Closer than you think.
Leads in pass yards, completion percentage leader, 7 rushing touchdowns as well. That's a guy who's going to get you what you need on the ground. Then the running back room, this one actually super underrated. A lot of really good backs in the Big Ten this year.
There is.
Woody Marks, over 5.5 yards per carry. 47 receptions, by the way. And then Trey Henderson, almost 7 yards per carry. Give me both of those guys at wide receiver. Pat Bryant, cannot say a bad thing about him. You can't say a bad thing about Tez Johnson either. It's one of them aliens out west. A lot of people probably aren't familiar. They're good familiar Saturday when they play Penn State. Tight end, Tyler Warren. He's going to win the Mackey Award. He's the best tight end in the United States of America. Got him on my team. And the Penn State offensive line here, that's the number one offensive line in sacks allowed. It's the number one offensive line in tackles for loss, yards allowed. They're 2 tackles for loss off the number 1 spot for total TFLs allowed. It's a great offensive line.
I'm going to go pull up the receipts of you talking about this same offensive line just about a few hours ago, questioning them, and all of a sudden questioning their ability.
I didn't question.
Questioning their ability to be elite. But to be elite. All right, okay. Let's talk about who they're facing, all right? Let's talk about who they're facing because, my goodness, my defensive line it's the Avengers, Joshua. This is terrifying for Dylan Gabriel. Kenneth Grant is the Avenger by himself. Okay. This is the thing. I like Mason Graham. I like Derek Harmon. I like your interior. I like mine even better.
No, you don't.
Because I got 350 times 2, 700 pounds in the paint. Kenneth Grant and Ty Robinson, but those guys are both agile. Abdul Carter is the best edge by a landslide in the conference.
When he wants to be.
Well, he'll want to be in this one.
When he wants to be.
Look at that guy. He's cut up and he's shredded.
I don't know if he's 100% all the time. I got motor guys on my team.
Josiah Stewart changes game. How about my linebackers? What I like about them is they're versatile enough to cover as well. So we got Schwesinger from UCLA, Carson Bruner from Washington. I've seen him with a couple multi-interception games, and Kobe King for Penn State. And then in the back end, Lathan Ransom. I got position flexibility. That's the key right here. Lathan Ransom at safety to go alongside Xavier Scott, and then Penn State's A.J. Harris alongside Justin Wally. Justin Wally, very experienced. I don't think you like
your secondary.
I do. I don't
think you like the matchups.
I do because I don't against your guys. I do like my secondary.
No, you don't.
I absolutely do. I absolutely do.
Dude.
And against your offensive line, I saw them try to close up the game against Ohio State. They're definitely not going to be able to close out the game against my D-line.
I saw Abdul Carter try to get some stops in the run game against Ohio State. When he wants to, he's a great player.
Like I said, I've saw that it's more about the group. The way Penn State tried to close out the game, it wasn't good.
Jake knows he's cooked, and that's really the issue here.
The opening line is my team by 7.5 right now.
Oh, please.
Opening line is my team by 7.5.
I just won GM of the year. That's the thing that you don't realize.
We're going to let the people decide.
Yeah, we will.
We are going to let the people decide.
We will.